My name's Kendall Ware. I'm the president and COO of Orange Leaf Frozen Yogurt and Humble Donut Co. I'm here with CiCi today to talk about treat brands. So to make sure that the guest and the end consumer has a similar experience, we have to make sure that we bring more than just one item. Most guests are used to that self-serve frozen yogurt experience. And so how do you take something very similar to them? So something that we invested in that we have nationwide is something called a pop-up party box. And it's basically our catering vehicle. But it comes with, unlimited froyo flavors, toppings, a whole setup to where guests can have that same, build your own experience, but in their office or in their homes. Yeah, so we had to create something simple, right? Obviously, when you come up with an idea like this, there's so many big ideas and thoughts and different ways to accomplish it, but they become more operational complex, more labor intensive. And so we just wanted something very simple that still maintained the brand's consistency, but that could be traveled and brought to anywhere by anybody. And so we created that box with the mentality of saying, hey, how simple is this, and could anybody put it together? Could anybody go and put this into an event or a party and set it up appropriately? And the answer was yes. So a lot of thought and testing went into this pop-up party box to make sure that it could be accomplished. So a lot of SOPs had to be implemented, because again, now you're handling a product in a way you've never handled it before. And so you can't, grab frozen yogurt out of a machine and just go deliver it. You have to now come up with, a freezing process, a thawing process, the exact timing of how early you have to start, pouring out the smoothies or the flavors, etc. So a lot of educational knowledge had to be adopted, especially on the food safety side, because now it's not as simple as it used to be. But the reward is so much higher that people are willing to buy into it and learn what they need to learn to start opening up the doors to cater more often. We focus heavily on the online learning side of things. So anything that we do, any new operational changes, we make sure that we create short, bite-sized training videos that are designed for team members, managers, and our strategic partners or franchisees. So we start there. We start by making sure that we have one voice communicating any changes or standards. That way it's consistent, and then we focus on the follow-up. And so from there, we have our team who goes out there and makes sure that we're actually adopting and implementing those changes. But we do, we rely heavily on the online learning aspect through an app called Remarkable Me that we have internally, where basically it's all about the training, the learning. So training is the foundation of anything that you do in any business. And far too often training is perceived as a cost center versus a profit center. And so we definitely have shifted that mentality to make sure people realize the value that comes out of training. And so it's something we invest in heavily. First we start off with the online learning videos. We have to make sure that you have that one consistent voice speaking to all people in the exact same way, right? You gotta have that consistency. From there, we do have follow-up sessions where we go out into the field and we essentially have field training workshops where you have that shoulder-to-shoulder, peer-to-peer. You have everybody in one room to where you can still talk about what they learned online and then actually practice it in real life, right? Now you're actually making the products that you have read about or took a test on and so on and so forth, but you have somebody from the support center there by your side who's truly showing you everything you already learned in the video, but now validating that experience. That's what makes or breaks the catering experience, is you have to have the training in place to make sure that all team members, all managers, anybody involved with making that product and responsible for delivering that experience understands what it takes to take that great product you have in store that the guests know you for, but now you're going to take it out of store. So there's got to be a lot of training and very tight standards in place to make sure that you have figured out the perfect way to maintain that quality. So today, currently, whether that's catering, whether that's mobile delivery, you are taking your experience now out of the building. And the challenge with that is you don't have trained and certified people who are responsible and aware of what they should be delivering or how they should be welcoming and greeting guests and how they should handle or display certain products. And so we focus on how do we educate as many people involved, whether that's our cater partnerships and mobile delivery partners, but how do we educate people on what our standards are? Even if it's the slightest touch, to where the guest feels like, this is just like how I get it when I'm in store. You have to create that strategic plan to where you're saying, here's what I'm doing for the business, and it was something that was created and collaborated upon by all stakeholders in that business. And once that's defined, you have to make sure that you have the right roles and support in place to accomplish that plan. And so every year, I focus on shifting some roles around or even creating new roles to make sure that we have the right support structure for that plan. You have to have a designated role or member focused on catering solely, otherwise it just doesn't get done. Well, first and foremost, you have to have more available to the guest. And so something we did last year is we actually launched smoothies and shakes nationwide to make sure that we opened up that door to where now there's different treats, but also different day parts that are now available for the consumer. But we looked at that, and we also started looking at other smaller add-on products like cookies to have more to add to that check. And so by adding all these other products, it really started to increase that average check, and people started using the online services or catering more often because there was more to bring to their event. First and foremost, we have to make sure that we uphold the company standard no matter where that product's going. So our standards have to be maintained, and we have to have our core product quality to be as high as it is when it shows up at the doorstep and or at the office or wherever it goes as it would in store. And so a lot of focus went into the timing of this whole aspect. With a treat that could potentially melt, we had to do a lot of testing from how long it takes for a product to be, prepared, and then how long does it have before it starts to melt or start to, lessen in quality. And so we did a lot of tests in terms of how long we can drive with it, how long we had to freeze it prior, exactly how many minutes depending upon how far we're thinking the order's gonna go. And so we know that there's a set amount of time frame needed for the product to sit in a frozen state prior to being delivered on a 20-minute drive, 30-minute drive, hour drive, etc. As a leader of any treat brand, you have to make sure that your operational standards are in place and they're very, very tight and they protect your brand. Guests have to, again, experience the same product, in store, the same as do out of store. So each individual product should have its own checklist to understand how it needs to be maintained in the catering process, but also what all should be delivered with it. Frozen yogurt, for example, is very delicate. We have to ensure that it does not melt, and so we have to, make sure people are upholding the standards of how long they have to, flash freeze it technically prior to delivering it. Or how much time they need to prepare the product, anticipating the order or the pickup or the delivery to make sure that it's going to be in that normal creamy state by the time it arrives at the event. We provide all of the training, all of the guidance, all the support and resources you need to accomplish a successful catering order. But at the end of the day, it comes down to store level execution. And any business owners involved, any managers involved have to ensure that they're focusing on executing at the store level, and they're taking all those resources and actually applying them to that catering order. As we embarked down this catering journey, we wanted to ensure that our franchisees were set up for success. And so we implemented 3 different equipment packages, basically beginner, intermediate, and advanced, to reach all levels of catering. And so for those who are just getting started and getting into the weeds a little bit of catering, we have that beginner package where it's all the essentials you need to deliver frozen yogurt, a smoothie, mini donuts, etc. Then we move into that intermediate package. That's when we start getting into weddings and a little bit larger events, big office parties, things like that. And then we have the advanced, where essentially you're talking rolling in mini carts, you're having more non-traditional units built up for an event and or a certain period of time for maybe a sports game, something along those lines. But we have all those different equipment packages available, and it's up to the partner to choose which one they want to go after depending upon the opportunities they have at hand. The reason why we put those other packages in place was to be there to support our franchisees as their catering business grows. And so as they start to scale catering, in their, communities, we want to make sure that we have the right support structure in place where they continue to grow and to where nobody has to say no to any event that they get.